it's transitioned from where I always thought, I needed to be selling, always needed to be selling, all that stuff. But then I kind of figured it out that it's not about that.
Hello and welcome to episode 73 of the Smart Agents Podcast. My name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. In today's episode, we are joined by 20-year real estate vet Terry Trexler. Over the course of his career, Terry has seen how agents have become more and more reliant on technology. And while all of the tools at our disposal are great, Terry says what he has gotten the most success from is by forming meaningful relationships with his clients. Throughout our conversation, Terry shares his tips and advice for putting the real back in real estate. Now, before we get on to the day's featured interview, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now Amazon Music. Also, as you can see if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Click the bell to get notifications when each new episode is uploaded. Lastly, if you or somebody else on your team has an inspirational story or real estate tips to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. All right, let's get on to the day's featured interview with Terry. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you do as well. Honestly, the way I like to get everything started out is if you could just introduce yourself to me a little bit, who you are and kind of where you are at in the country.
Okay. Well, my name is Terry Trexler. I'm in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I've been licensed as an agent for about almost 20 years now. Been a broker for probably 13 or 14 of them. I've been through a few different companies, franchises, 100% companies, owned my own company for a few years and then found my way over to where I am now. And currently I'm with eXp Realty. I'm also an instructor. I help agents get their license, as well as, training and coaching and a little bit of everything, really. Investing, definitely immerse myself in just about everything I can real estate related and continue to try and learn every day. So,
right.
Yeah.
What was it that made you want to get into real estate, 20 years ago?
Funny story. Both my parents did real estate basically for over 30 years. And, I grew up in Virginia Beach, as I mentioned, and my dad did up around Pittsburgh. My mom did it down here. They were basically, they weren't together basically my whole life, about 6 months after I was born, but they both managed to be in real estate. So every time I was with my dad, I saw real estate. Every time I was with my mom, I saw real estate. Grew up in a real estate office, no matter where I was. I never wanted to do it. So at 18, I decided to join the military, joined the Marines, and did that for 6 years, got out, got a job. And then my mom sold me my first little place, little condo. And then once I was like, wait a second, I got to see the settlement statement, right? I saw that she got paid a few $1,000s and I was like, tell me more. So from that point, I got my license and yeah, that's kind of exactly how it evolved, not wanting anything to do with it to, getting out, having a job and realizing, wow, there has to be something better than this. So that's where it took off.
It's funny. That's kind of that whole idea of having parents that were involved in it and not wanting anything to do with it. That's a story that I've heard, quite a few times. Yeah. Is that when you're younger and you see like, I don't want anything, I want something different. And then everybody ends up coming back around to it when they start seeing the earning potentials there.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I've done some of these interviews with some other agents and been on the other side of the table. And I didn't know their story, but as we started talking, they shared very similar story with that. And I'm like, wow, okay. That's a recurring theme, it seems sometimes. So, back to
you said that you've been with different companies, you had your own companies. What was it that made you want to kind of branch out and really kind of start your own thing when you first did that?
I really didn't have a desire to. Again, it's one of those things that wasn't planned out, more or less. Being at, I was at different places. And then in 2011, I think 2011, I had found eXp online then. They had like 100 agents and I was like, wait a second, this might be a good idea. So nobody called me. I found him online. I reached out to the state broker in Virginia, which I think it was just him at that point. So I said, hey, I want to join. How do I do this? And he's like, okay, sign here. So I joined. I was at EXP back then, just a couple of us in Virginia, and did it for about 3 months. My dad ended up getting sick, not sick, and he unhealthy, heart failure, diabetes, things like that. And, so I was at EXP for about 3 months. And then I had the decision, because at that point in his career, he had had Trexler real estate for about 25 years. And I never wanted to go up there and do anything with it, because we weren't 100% close, but, I saw him on occasion. But long story short, he was on his way out, I guess the best way to describe it. He was passing away. And I decided to leave EXP and start Trexler real estate here in Virginia Beach as a kind of, it's homage or pay respects to my dad. And so I left EXP then, did Trexler real estate by just an emotional gut feeling. Never really did anything with it. I flipped some houses, sold a few houses, didn't really bring anybody over to grow it, because I've never really been big into bringing people into things unless I 100% believe in them and it's for their best interest. So, it was interesting to me, but it wasn't in everybody's best interest just to join a little tiny company with just me. And when there's other bigger companies back then that, offered a lot more. So I did that. And I did it for a few years until I started to look back at other companies and found my way back to EXP. So,
right. Yeah. And now you said with EXP, now you're really involved in the training aspect of things and bringing on new people. And I think that's one of those things, like, as I look at the different companies out there, I always feel like EXP, is really on the cutting edge of their agent training, and all the different things you guys are doing is always really interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's being able to say that, I was at Keller Williams twice. I've been at Remax. I was at the mom and pop shops and had my own. So, I mean, I got, over the past 20 years, I've gotten a lot of diverse ideas and trainings and everything else. And being able to see that. And then where I'm at now, just looking at it like, wow, like, okay, like I haven't seen anything like this before. Now I've been here for the second time around at EXP. I've been here now for 4.5 years, and they just keep adding to it. So, I mean, the training's huge and the support's huge. I mean, people want to talk about the money aspect. The money's great, but nothing matters if you're not getting trained and don't have support. So with what they have there, it's kind of through the roof with the availability of the training and the people doing the training. It's second to none for sure.
Right. And I imagine, if you could go back 20 years ago and say, hey, these are really the things that are going to be important to your career. It's not necessarily the amount of leads that are being generated for you or whatever it is, but you got to learn how to close those deals, and you got to learn how to, do this for yourself, and I think that's really something that EXP does a good job at, is training their agents to be sufficient.
Yeah. No, they do. I mean, and some people are like, well, because I've heard, I hear people all the time say that, don't have this, don't have that. But, it's like any company, if you're going to be successful, whether it's, Keller Williams, KW, Keller Williams, Remax, your own company. I mean, you can sell houses anywhere if you're willing to put in the work. So, whether someone's comes to me or someone else and complains about their brokerage, well, if they haven't done anything wrong, the truth is that you can sell houses absolutely any company. And you don't necessarily need them. Now, sure, they make it easier with some of the things they have in place. But I think if people immerse themselves in what EXP offers, or even 10 or 20% of it, they'll be pleasantly surprised on what they can accomplish. So, yeah.
Right. So as you're doing this training, what are some of the really kind of main pillars that you kind of touch on to get people, jump started with their careers?
Yeah. I mean, really, I'm a big fan of relationships. I did the same thing most agents do when they're getting started, or maybe even some of them that have been around 20, 30 years. People are like, I just want some leads. And I still hear that sometimes. And I think you even touched on it just a second ago. it's not necessarily, dropping 100 leads in your lap or 50 leads in your lap, because, you start really analyzing those numbers, and it's been done time and time again by some of the brightest minds out there. You're trying to talk to strangers, and especially these days with our phones, blowing up with spam calls all the time. It's 1 in 100 of strangers that you're going to convert. And that's if you're doing everything right, following up with them, staying in touch, because very few people are going to buy a house immediately. So, 1 in 100 is tough odds. So I focus on creating real relationships, and that means staying in touch with people. That's the hub. Like, people want to chase leads. People want to make themselves, how can I say it, feel busy. I know people right now that might on paper sell 50 houses, 50 houses a year. That sounds phenomenal, and it is phenomenal. But at the end of the day, once they start talking about their splits and their cuts and everything else that they might have spent money on, I've known people that sold 50 houses in a good market with houses, 300 grand on average, which normally equates to around, 120, 150,000 in income, but they're barely clearing 40 or 50 grand at the end of the year. Right. And 50 houses for 40 or 50 grand, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work, So I focus on relationships. That's key. And once you stay in touch and you have those relationships, you fought so hard to get it, whether it's a friend or family member, or whatever that case may be. Now it's the follow-up. So relationships and follow-up is huge. And it's not follow-up in the essence or the standpoint from, you're ready to buy a house, ready to buy a house, ready to buy a house. Nobody wants that. Right. Right. But it's just the being more genuine. Like, hey, happy birthday. Hey, I saw that you did this, went on vacation. How was your trip? Do you need help? I see you moving. Do you need some help? I've got, like, me personally, I have 3 teenagers and one almost a teenager. So I'm like, hey, do you need moving help? I may not personally do it, but I got some kids that can help out. But, and if it's a good friend, I will go out there and help out. But, just being a resource. It's transitioned from where I always thought, I needed to be selling, always needed to be selling, all that stuff. But then I kind of figured it out that it's not about that. It's, someone needs to figure out a dog groomer. Hey, I've got a great person for you. Or I need a place to go to, I needed someone to come wash my car because I can't leave the house, or I don't want to leave the house because this, especially now in these days, people don't necessarily want to run around. You just want to be a resource. Mm-hmm. So if you can develop those relationships, stay in touch and be real about it. And then just be a resource for what people need. Those are really the 3 things that I try and focus everything on. And it's worked out pretty well. It feels so much better than the way it used to, chasing down leads, for sure. Right.
And I think a lot of that comes down to, really just actually caring about your clients, as you're going through the whole transaction, because I think if you build those relationships, it's a whole lot easier to keep those follow-up relationships going.
Right. And it's funny you say that, because like I mentioned before, I was that agent that always, not always, but a lot of times I would blame it on the company I was with. I tried this, they didn't have enough support or training, or I went here and, my broker wasn't doing enough. And then I tried this company and the agents there weren't helping me. And I was like, wait a second, the one common factor in all of this is me, so it has to be me. And then once I took ownership of that, and I was like, okay, what can I do today to be better than I was yesterday? Mm-hmm. And I'd mess up. And then I'm like, what can I do today to be better than what I did yesterday? And I told myself that over and over again. And I continue to do that. And it really took until, for one, I had my own company. And 2, when I came over to EXP and got around, a lot of people preach the culture thing. And that's a big word in real estate, as we all know. And people think that, well, EXP doesn't have that, yes. I mean, it's better here. And I feel more connected here than I've ever felt. Mm-hmm. And it's just the people that will pour into you just for no financial incentive. They're not worried about you taking their secrets, because a lot of them realize there are no secrets in real estate. Everything, especially in 2021, going into 2022, anything you want to know about how to do something, whether it's real estate or anything, it's online. It's online and you can find it for free. You just got to be willing to do it, right? Someone teach you anything they can or teach you everything under the sun. But the difference between learning it and being successful is that thing in the middle called work, which people get tripped up on sometimes.
Yeah. So when you kind of realize this whole idea, like, look, I've got to start creating these relationships to have this sustained success. What are some of the things that you were doing and are doing, as that transaction is in the actual transaction phase and you're working with these clients before, you've started doing the follow-up to kind of really start forming those good, solid relationships?
Yeah. So, I mean, literally, I could have most of mine are referral. Most of my clients are referrals at this point, but, I still do, even those you have to stay in touch with. But, it starts off with just having that conversation, not following, some crazy script word for word, but literally just getting some key things out, whether it's a lead or a referral. You need to, pick up the phone. People again, they think that, technology is great. And the one thing I do love about, because when I got in, I was the young guy, and now I feel like I'm getting more to the other side of the table. I'm 46 now. But what I do like is the fact that when I first got in, nobody was really online. There was a few people, but definitely not. There was no Zillow, there was no realtor.com, there was no, just about anything you can think of, it wasn't out there, and very few people were doing it. So I got to see the curve go up from no technology. And especially when I was younger around my parents, there was no technology, not even a beeper. So I got to see the technology go up, and everybody gravitated towards technology, and technology is great. It can help you tremendously. I'm a big proponent of that. But then now so many people want to base their whole career on, I've got the best technology, and they're using it to basically not be human.
Right.
And not be in touch. So now the people that are succeeding are using technology, but they're still making it a relationship business. They're still, like I mentioned before, they're picking up the phone and saying happy birthday. They're taking the clients out to dinner or having events where everyone can come together, face to face. Those things are huge. So that's where it's at. But being able to see that transition and know that now it's back to where it was, just with a lot of cool stuff, and those are the people that are seeing their business take off. And yeah, for sure.
So it's interesting you mentioned, the technology and, the dehumanizing of, things with technology being so much. But I was talking to somebody a while back, and we got talking about, the amount of millennials that are starting to purchase homes and starting to get into real estate, and, their whole lives have been connected to the internet. But really what he was finding was that a lot of them really needed somebody to guide them through that process and to kind of be that friend and be, kind of pull them away from the internet a little bit to really explain things better than just some text or some video. Have you noticed that as you've, started to work with a younger group of people buying?
Yeah, no, I definitely have. And I mean, sure, they, you get the guys, like I just sold a house, great guy, young military guy, and I don't even know if he's in his mid 20s yet, but he's bought his first house. So good for him. But, sure, he likes text. He's busy. We're all busy. So he likes text. But when there's something that needed to be discussed, again, picking up the phone and having that real conversation. And not just, because I don't know about you. I'm married. I have kids. So when I send out a text, that text can be taken a few different ways.
Right.
and in being in a relationship, you kind of realize that, like, I didn't mean it like that.
Right.
So just like with clients, I could try and explain myself through a text, but that can be taken as 1, I don't care. 1, I don't know what I'm talking about, or 3, just, it doesn't make any sense. And they're kind of out in left field. And then they end up having a conversation with their friend that has a friend that's a realtor, and they explain everything maybe over dinner or when they run into them, at the ball game or the bar, the restaurant, and they're like, oh, my realtor didn't tell me that. And that would be my fault because I should have picked up the phone. So yeah, I mean, that face-to-face and that phone, people say it weighs 10,000 pounds in real estate or sales in general. And it does for some people. They want to, like you said, dehumanize it. And the young, I mean, it's everybody, but even the ones that live, breathe, and eat technology, they still want that human connection. And it's just human nature, I think. I mean, we just want it, especially with COVID, which has separated us and distanced us from each other probably more than we've ever been as, society. So,
right. I think it's just having that, having that face-to-face or even the phone conversation. There's just that comfort level of knowing that I can ask my question and it's going to be answered, because when if it's just a text or if it's just, here's this link to this, article on it, I can't ask a question about something that just doesn't quite make sense to me, because I think a lot of times people forget this is, these transactions, like that's a big thing. And a lot of people are so overwhelmed and they just don't know anything about it. You've got to really kind of guide them through the whole process.
Right. And I think about it because, like a lot of us, I go online, I research things. It could be about real estate. It could be about anything. My kids' band performance or lacrosse that my other son does. It could be about anything. But I read, I'm like, I just want to pick up the phone. I just want to ask somebody something. I want to ask the coach when I see him next, tell me what this is and how that works. Sure, I can read it but watch a YouTube video, but I got a question, got a question. And I think we've all been there, and I think we all still go through it every day. Because, if it's a one-sided conversation through a video or you're reading something, that's not a real relationship. That's not a real core conversation. So yeah, I think it's where it's all at, and it's where it's always going to be. And, people all the time used to talk about Zillow taking over and this company taking over and that. And I'm like, God, just do you, like, be you, focus on your people. And, I call it my tribe sometimes, or my people, but focus on your people, because if you do it right, because I mentor some new agents and I train some new agents and even coach some teams. But the one thing that, some people don't have when they don't have the confidence when they're brand new. Right. So, they're like, well, I don't even know what to say to my, I don't even know what to say. I don't know if I should talk to my friends. I don't know. And I'm like, you better talk to your friends, because if you do it right, well, if you don't do it, somebody like me might come in or someone else and scoop them up, and now they're theirs. And we've all been there and lost clients to another agent that was doing it right. But if, say, new agent Joanna, we'll use that example. If she reaches out to her friends and family and coworkers, and she's a brand new agent, even though she doesn't, maybe she doesn't know as much as far as the book side or the real life real estate side, right? She has that relationship already. And as we say, if they know you, like you, and trust you, that's it. You've just got to be there now. But, if she taps into that, she's like, hey, I'm just here as a resource. Someone like me can't come in and scoop them away, because she's involved with that. She's having a relationship, and I can't come in as a stranger and snatch that away if she does it right, because Joanna's her person. Joanna's that family's person. And I'm just that random stranger that picked up the phone trying to get a sale, as they would think.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. So, before wrapping up, we've talked about, the creating the relationships and throughout the, the whole transaction process. And then you talk about how important it is to stay connected and be that resource. So just touching on that a little bit more, what is your, do you have a certain method that you kind of go through, or is it really more of an organic type thing that you do?
Most of mine's organic. I do use some I use some technology, but just enough, I think, at this point, because I found myself doing the same thing everybody does. I was like, technology, but now it's more or less like, now I have a system where if I see something on like Facebook, it's birthdays today. And I can't say I'm 100% consistent I struggle with it still like everybody, right? But I'll send a Facebook video message. I'll look a couple people. I'm like, hey, and I'll just do a quick 10 to 15 second video. Hey, just want to say happy birthday. How you doing, Michelle? Hopefully all is well. Have a great day. Take care. And I'm out. And then sometimes if I see some of the, people do a trip or somebody graduates or someone has some success somewhere and they post a picture online, whether that's Instagram or Facebook or wherever, I can take that picture, drop it on a card, and I'll send it through mail with a stamp. And people are like, why? I'm like, because they're never going to throw that away.
Yep.
Or I'm 99% sure they're never going to throw it away.
Right.
Because somebody did it to me about 8-9 years ago. And they started off, and I had a dog that passed away. And Gail, she sent me a card, had a picture of my 2 dogs, the one that passed away, and said, hey, just thinking of you. Best wishes, Gail. And I was like, who is Gail? But, she had sent me a message and like, hey, I'm just basically, we're Facebook friends. I'm just trying to stay in better touch with everybody. Would you mind if I got your address? I'm going to send you something. I'm not going to spam you, but I just want to stay in touch better. Okay, sure. Here you go. In my head, she's never going to send me anything. Right? Never. Well, a few months later, perfect opportunity for her. It showed up and I'm like, oh my God, it's the only card I got, right? Who gets mail anymore in the mailbox besides bills? So I got that and I was like, oh my God. And I have it to this day. And then she sent me one 3 or 4 years later with a picture of my daughter snowboarding. And then I'm like, oh my God. And I'm keeping these forever. Like I know right now, I am never getting rid of any of these. And I'm like, that's what I got to do. That's what I got to do to stay in touch. And I've went into clients' houses where they have a picture of, now the husband proposing to his now wife, which was 5-6 years ago, in their kitchen, or someone graduating and going to Disney World with their kids, or just a birthday party. And I'm just like, here. And people are like, I love it. And then they share it. I mean, so I use technology in that aspect, but I don't use it to hide behind people. I use it to be more real, be a better friend, be a better contact, a better resource, whatever you want to call it. But I'm trying to put the real in the relationship. So that's my goal. That's everything I do. I mean, it's not 100% consistent, but it's just, okay, well, I see this, a few people here, a few people there. And I guess if you want to tie it to some of the stuff that we get trained as salespeople or agents, I don't think I'm in sales, but real estate for sure. They always say, send your 5 personal cards a day. So, I try and hit up at least 5 people with something meaningful a day, and if I can send 5 things out, whether it's the card or the happy birthday or just a video text, so they get me and not just some rigid text or email or, what's your house worth? I don't care. Like I can get that from anybody, but yeah, just keeping it real and using technology to be real about everything. So yeah, it's been good.
I really like that, putting the real back in real estate. And, I think that's a great way to wrap things up, because I think that is something that a lot of people, they need to remember.
Right. Sure. Yeah. That's 100%. I think if everybody does that, it'd give the industry a better name, because a lot of times like, oh, I know an agent. And that's our fault that people look at us as, oh, I know an agent, because everybody, 100 agents. Before I was licensed, I knew 100 agents. I'm sure my high school kids probably know real estate agents at this point. But who's being more real about it? Who's being real, putting the real in real estate? Who's doing that? And whoever does that wins. So it's good,
awesome.
Man. Good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me this morning.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the invite. As soon as I got the message from me, I was like, you know what? I love talking about real estate. So there's no secrets. So let's share. So no, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I want to thank Terry for joining us today and really like his approach for using technology to form better personal relationships with his clients. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an awesome story or tips to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.